The next slide. So Dr. Khan, how do we do this? What do we need? Well, the brain says the brain loves challenge, and the second part it loves is feedback. And if you cannot see on your screen what the little writing is at the bottom, under challenge we're talking about problem solving, we're talking about critical thinking. Under feedback, we're talking about progress monitoring. We're talking about creating feedback loops that are multimodal, so that students can look at where they are, assess what they're doing, and move on and see that curve grow. The slide on the right, you see two neurons. The neuron on the top is called an impoverished neuron, one that's not received a whole lot of stimulation from the environment or from the result of poor teaching. The second neuron of a child in a classroom is one that we want, and that's what differentiated instruction is going to do for us, is we're going to be having this enriched neuron. And to create this enriched neuron, I'm going to share with you today 10 strategies. So what's the good news, you might ask? Well, the good news is we need to start to rethink how we teach. We need to start to raise the bar. We need to raise the expectations, because research, according to Anne Willock, she says something incredible. She says that students from whom more is expected, they actually produce more. Wow. Students from whom less is expected produce less. Even, and here's the important point, even when this result is not intended, it just happens this way. Happenstance. So my question to you is, what types of expectations do you have as a teacher? What is your philosophy? How do you integrate this into your teaching? Do you expect more or do you expect less? So are you providing the challenging content? Are you providing opportunities for feedback? Because what the brain loves, 1, challenge, 2, feedback. Right, Autumn? Yeah, thank you. So at this point, I think what we need to do is clearly define what differentiated instruction looks like, feels like. The first point I want you to know what it is that differentiated instruction focuses just on the essentials. What is most important? The basics. After I teach my lesson, there are 2 or 3 things I want to leave with my students, because I believe that less is more, okay? Direct instruction also talks about understanding student differences. Remember I put up that graph showing 1 to 100 on that continuum? We need to start to think about student differences in our teaching. Take that into account. The next piece is that we need to realize, and you already know this, that assessment and instruction are intertwined, integrated, and they should work together seamlessly. And one of the questions I always ask students is, who is the assessment for? Well, the answer to that question really is, assessment is first for the teacher, then the student. Why? Well, very simple reason, is that it's a good gauge, it's a good way to calibrate my teaching, because I want to have teaching that's going to be teaching for precision, teaching diagnostically and prescriptively. Okay? So I have to assess what I teach and teach what I assess. And I constantly work with this and I tangle with it, because these are the things, one influencing the other. There's another beautiful word that I'd like to use. It's called that assessment and instruction, they should be this reciprocal relationship, or a dialectical sort of relationship. Now, the most important point of what differentiated instruction is the next point, and that is there are three things to differentiated instruction. The first thing is that we need to modify the content. We just don't take the content and do nothing with it. We have to infuse it with understanding that students have different learning styles and different learning modalities, and they all have different degrees of learning. So we need to be open to the notion that we could modify the content, okay? The second part to it is that we need to look at the process by which we take content and we make it meaningful. And I like to look at process as a vehicle from going from one point to the next point. And that process can be manipulated differently for different situations and contexts. And lastly, which is one of my favorite, is products. Products. What products will come out of this teaching or this unit? Okay? And the product needs to be engaging, needs to be meaningful. It also has the A word, which is it must be authentic. It must be relevant. So I think in differentiated instruction, when you're thinking about differentiating, you need to do what is called backwards designing. Think about the end in mind and work backwards. Look at the product. This is what we need to do as a class. Now let's work backwards and let's see how we can create these products. And the other question with differentiated instruction, not every student should produce the same product. Otherwise, we're going to the cookie cutter mentality. Okay? Everyone should have an opportunity to create different products. Okay? And the products are so important. I'm going to talk to you about how to create this in the next 10 strategies. And flexibility. The last thing that you need to have as a differentiated instruction teacher is that you need to be absolutely flexible. On the spur of the moment, you need to be open to the idea of making a change to help facilitate me teaching and learning in that classroom. And that's what good teachers do. Okay? So to recap again, we're looking at the essentials. We're attending to the differences of students, their learning styles and learning preferences. We are looking at collaborating between teachers and administration. We're looking at tying in and making sure that our assessment and instruction are inseparable. We're testing, we're teaching, we're testing, we're teaching. And we are progress monitoring throughout that time. And the three most important things in differentiated instruction is that you need to have the ability and be open to modify your content. Not just for your slow learners, but for all learners. Okay? We also need to look at the process of differentiated instruction, and not everybody all driving the same car to get to our destination. Hey, we could all have different cars to get to it, right? We all don't have to be in this one vehicle. So the process we could change, but we're all moving in that direction, and I'll explain that to you. And lastly, the products. The products must be authentic, engaging, and relevant to you and the students. Okay? So, and the other piece is flexibility, and I think you got that part. Now, I'm going to share with you what is called an equalizer. Thank you to Tomlinson, who created the equalizer. I've just modified it, and I'm going to show this on my doc cam right now. And this should be in your handout. The equalizer basically talks about creating a learning profile for every one of your students. A learning profile, very simply, if you look at the arrows, it starts with the concrete to the abstract. Here's concrete, here's the abstract. This is less of, and this is more of. So it actually increases as we move down here. If I just go ahead and make some dots here, and more dots down here, and what I have to do using the equalizer, how many of you have seen a graphic equalizer that has music? You know, in your graphic equalizer you can fine-tune your music. What you're doing here right here is that you're fine-tuning and you're looking at the learning potential of each one of your students in your classroom. You want to ask the question with regards to John, and where is John on there? Is he more concrete or more abstract? So I'm just going to go ahead and lean more towards concrete, and I circle that. The next one I'm going to do is, does he find things easy or difficult? Probably difficult, so I'm going to check there. Is he slow or fast in completing tasks? So you ask that question. So basically you go down this and you check it off. The other one is he independent versus dependent? Can he do things on his own? Does he require modifications? And you just put in your points. Can he function with prompts or without prompts? Either one. So basically, you will have an equalizer created for each one of your students. What does this do? Anybody? Can this help you as a teacher, creating this profile on your students? You have one. Okay, I'm going to ask you to, what I'm asking you to do is create a profile for each one of your students using the equalizer, so you know where they're at and how much of differentiation you will have to do for each one of these students. And that's the beautiful part about the equalizer. Okay,